I didn't want to move from my old house. I had lots of friends who loved to hang out with me, and I knew everything and everyone in my small town. But my dad got a promotion at his work, so we had to move from our small town of Stonington, Illinois, to a rather large town, Sacramento, California. Also, I wasn't too thrilled when I learned about the place we were going to be living in. My dad told me that it would be fun to live in a mansion, but I wasn't so sure about that. My mom reassured me that everything would be alright. So after we arrived at our new home and unpacked all of our stuff, I decided to do some research on the mansion. That's when I found out that this place was previously owned by the mass murderer Crux the Cruel. Then I found an article about Crux on Google and decided to read it. It said that this is the 114th 6-year-old girl that has gone missing this year. Of course, this article is like a decade old, so whatever. As I continued to read it, it said a lot of interesting things about Crux, such as the fact that he has blood-red eyes and a secret room in his basement where he murdered his victims. The article then told about how the police chief, Ruzak Michael, placed his own 6-year-old daughter Lily undercover to catch Crux in the act. He placed a GPS tracker on Lily and a panic button inside of her locket. He also had 16 snipers looking at the mansion, and the entire Sacramento PD outside his mansion as well. The operation was going smoothly, until Lily hit the panic button inside of her locket as soon as she reached the secret room, and one of Crux's alarms went off. Chief Ruzak gave the order to move in immediately, and if they are to come in contact with the suspect, to shoot to kill. However, when they reached the secret room, they found Lily with a large knife held against her throat, and Crux standing over her with a wild grin on his face, and then he laughed and screamed, "Take one more step, and the room gets a new paint job!" That's when the police burst into the room, and without hesitation he shot the hand holding the knife. As the knife fell to the floor, Crux grabbed his arm and said, "Well, it looks like I lost the game." And then he laughed. The article went on about how all of his victims were exactly 114, and all of them were girls between the ages of 6 and 12. 6 months after Crux had been captured by the police, he was in prison. It was 2 days before he was going to get the lethal injection. So he grabbed his throat, and while screaming with laughter, he crushed his airway and died within the hour. Some people say that Crux's spirit returned to the mansion to seek revenge on Chief Ruzak and his daughter. Reading that article didn't ease my mind in the slightest, so I decided to play some Mario Kart with my little sister Rose. After we played for about 15 minutes, my sister asked me if we could get a snack before bed, so we went into the kitchen, and then Rose said, "Luke, do we have any Pop-Tarts left?" "I don't know. Let me check." I found a package of strawberry-flavored Pop-Tarts and I gave it to her. I knew that those were her favorite flavor. Afterwards, Mom called for us and told us to go to bed. My room was upstairs next to the bathroom, and Rose's room was right across from mine. About 1 hour later, my sister woke me up panicked and said, "There's someone under my bed." Annoyed, I told her to go back to bed. About 4 minutes later, I heard my sister screaming. I quickly rushed to her room and called for her, but I got no answer. And then I saw it. My jaw dropped with horror. Just then, my mom arrived at my sister's door and she saw it too. My dad came running up with his Glock at the ready and he asked my mom, "Emily, what's going on? Where's Rose?" "I don't know, James," my mom said. "I heard screaming and I rushed here." And then my dad saw it. On Rose's wall, written in blood, "She has been taken. Her shed blood will be the atonement for my return." My dad tried calling the police, but the phone lines had been cut. Then we heard my mom scream, "James, come quick!" My dad ran down the stairs faster than the speed of light, and I followed close behind him, and that's when we saw it. A false wall was open, with a blood trail leading into a dark hallway with a red light at the end. Without even thinking, my dad ran down the hallway with me and my mom close behind. When we reached the room, we saw my sister Rose, her brand new Hello Kitty pajamas, now stained with blood. My dad began to cry and my mom rushed over to Rose's body and hugged her. I was about to start crying as well, and then I heard the sweetest sound ever. My little sister asked my mom if she could please have a glass of chocolate milk. We all laughed with relief. The next morning, my dad requested a transfer back to the original post at his work. Long story short, we moved back to Stonington. But after that incident at the mansion, I couldn't help but feel like something was off about Rose. Probably just my imagination. About 6 years later, I'm 18 now, and I was on my way home from work when my sister called me and said, "You'll join them too." And then she started laughing. I thought she was just being silly, until I opened the door of my house and found my parents dead on the floor, with Rose standing over them in blood-stained clothes, with a twisted grin on her face. "Rose, what did you do?" I screamed, and then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. My sister's eyes, that were once a beautiful shade of blue, are now blood red. He got his revenge after all. I fell to the floor, emotionally broken. As I looked up, I saw Rose stab herself in the stomach. Then, laughing as she pointed a gun at my head, she looked me in the eye and said in a gruff voice, "You should have listened to your sister." The last thing I remember was the sound of a gunshot and blood running down my head as my consciousness started to fade to black, and I bled out. People say if you visit Crux's mansion, you can still hear the helpless screams of a 6-year-old girl begging for her brother to check under her bed.